We said this Wednesday night. MAGA without the crazy won big. Full MAGA doesn't sell anymore.
Most Americans are not marinating in Twitter. Most Americans are not participating in these extreme events. You could call this the make it stop election, because it's clear that people who were not tuned in, who tuned in late, they said make it stop.
Yet the cult of Trump still holds on to a significant part of the Republican Party. How much we don't know. And to be fair, he figured out how to tap into an anger and energy that 16 other Republicans, 17, depending on if you count people who dropped out before Iowa, just couldn't figure out. In 2016, he went through the Republican field of who's who and came out on top.
Donald Trump remains a very popular figure in the Republican Party in each corner of the country. And remember, when he was on the ballot in 2016 and 2020, we won a lot more seats than when he wasn't on the ballot in 2018 and 2022.
And despite public and private asks by members of his inner circle, Trump is undeterred. He won't even move his big announcement until after the December 6th Georgia runoff. That's angering a lot of people, considering what happened in Georgia in January of 2021. Scott Tranter's here, Director of Data Science for Decision Desk HQ, co-founder of Optimist Consulting. Scott, it's good to see you. Hope you got some rest over the weekend. Does the data support this idea that voters like Trump policies, they no longer like the Trump way of doing things?
Yeah, not only does the quantitative data show that, and we can talk about races in New Hampshire and Georgia, we can look at some qualitative data. There's been some well-publicized qualitative focus groups where people have said, yes, I like the policies. I don't like how they were initiated or carried out by the former president. And I think, you know, we're seeing that at least early on with that poll you showed a couple of minutes ago. There are voters who are willing to split with the president if they can find someone who supports the policies they like.
Quantitative data, that's the one with numbers, I believe. I always got those two confused, but you won't for us. Midterms 2022, ticket splitting boards. Georgia, Kemp wins by 7.6. Warnock's up by a point. Governor of Ohio, Republican wins by 25 points. J.D. Vance only ekes out by 6 points. New Hampshire governor, an enormous spread between Chris Sununu, the Republican, winning, and Maggie Hassan, the Democratic senator, winning over Don Bullock. Have we ever seen anything like this?
No, I mean, look, we talk about it amongst us data geeks and nerds that this stuff happens. We've seen it in polls, but usually when people go to the polls, they're straight, you know, they're straight ticket. They vote for the same party. That New Hampshire one is very interesting for 2024 because as the calendar goes, New Hampshire is the second upstate. And if you're an upstart candidate like Larry Hogan, former governor of Maryland, or maybe a Liz Cheney or something like that, that is a state you're looking for. And you're looking at Chris Sununu as a potential roadmap to get some of those crossover voters.
Yeah, Chris Sununu being the two-term now governor of New Hampshire, who's done by all accounts a great job up there. But you think about this, Georgia, Brian Kemp, Trump skeptical, even Trump antagonistic governor, he wins. Mike DeWine, governor of Ohio, Trump skeptical, probably not Trump antagonistic. And Chris Sununu, Trump borderline antagonistic. And Mike Bullock, the Senate candidate, lost by double digits. Wrapped himself in MAGA everything.
Yep.
Is it the policies of MAGA? Is it what people are, or how they perceive it being said? Explain to us what the data shows.
Well, at least now I'm going to use the qualitative in the focus groups where you ask these voters pretty pointed questions about what they like and don't like. The focus groups say the voters like the policies around healthcare. They like the policies around taxes. They like the policy around small business. They even like some of the populist messages around, you know, pro-worker, those types of things. What they don't like is how it was carried out over Twitter. They don't like how it was carried out in what they perceive to be childish or mean ways. That's why you look at Governor Ron DeSantis, who has been pushed some of those populist messages, you know, going against Disney, not necessarily for what everyone likes them to wanted him to go after Disney for, but he went after them anyway, and he ended up having one of the biggest nights in Florida, and he won Miami-Dade, traditionally a Democratic county. He won Miami-Dade, and that shows you that these policies have cross-party appeal if they're delivered in the right manner.
You have to wonder if that feedback loop comes back into the preferences in terms of a nominee, what people think. Now that they saw what happened in Florida, they think Ron DeSantis would be a formidable general election candidate. Thanks for watching. Go to newsnationnow.com to find News Nation on your television provider. And don't forget to subscribe. Click the red button to get more of News Nation's fact-driven, unbiased coverage.